Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Vishnupad Paramahansa Parudikacharya Ashtotar to Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parudikacharya Ashtotar to Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Krantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta Prayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki. Before reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan. Oh, we did that already. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam, and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. On this 21st day of July 2025 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we're reading from Canto 8, Withdrawal of the Cosmic Creations. Chapter 19, Lord Vamanadev begs charity from Bali Maharaj. Text 2 to 10. And we'll chant 10 together after I go through these other verses, which we did most of them yesterday. I'll read the Sanskrit. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Vachastavaita Janadeva Sunritam Kulochitam Dharma Yutam Yashaskaram Yasya Pramanam Bhagava Samparaye Pitamaha Kulavriddha Prashantaha. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O King, you are indeed exalted because your present advisors are the Brahmins, who are descendants of Bhrigu, and because your instructor for your future life is your grandfather, the peaceful and venerable Prahlad Maharaj. So your statements, so this is Vamana speaking to Bali. Your statements are very true, and they completely agree with religious etiquette. They are in keeping with the behavior of your family, and they enhance your reputation. Purport. Prahlad Maharaj is a vivid example of a pure devotee. Someone might argue that since Prahlad Maharaj, even though very old, was attached to his family, and specifically to his grandson Bali Maharaj, how could he be an ideal example? Therefore, this verse uses the word prashantaha. A devotee is always sober. He is never disturbed by any conditions. Even if a devotee remains in grahastha life and does not renounce material possessions, he should still be understood to be prashanta, or sober, because of his pure devotion to the Lord. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore said, Kiba vipra kiba nyasi shudra ke nenoi ye Krishna tattva veta se guru hoy. Whether one is a Brahmin, a sannyasi, or a Shudra, regardless of what he is, he can become a spiritual master if he knows the science of Krishna. CC Madhya 8:128. Anyone completely aware of the science of Krishna, regardless of his status in life, is a guru. Thus, Prahlad Maharaj is a guru in all circumstances. Here, his lordship, Vamanadev, also teaches sannyasis and brahmacharis that one should not ask more than necessary. He wanted only 3 paces of land, although Bali Maharaj wanted to give him anything he wanted. Text 3, I'll just read the English. I know that even now, no one taking birth in your family has been poor-minded or miserly. No one has refused to give charity to Brahmins, nor after promising to give charity has anyone failed to fulfill his promise. So that's what Shukracharya had advised. Even though you promised, you can break the promise. But Vamanadev is saying, no, not a good idea. O King Bali, never in your dynasty has a low-minded king been born who, upon being requested, has refused charity to Brahmins in holy places or a fight to Kshatriyas on a battlefield. And your dynasty is even more glorious due to the presence of Prahlad Maharaj, who is like the beautiful moon in the sky. Purport. The symptoms of a Kshatriya are given in the Bhagavad Gita. One of the qualifications is the willingness to give charity, dana. A Kshatriya does not refuse to give charity when requested by a Brahmin, nor can he refuse to fight another Kshatriya. A king who does refuse is called low-minded. In the dynasty of Bali Maharaj, there were no such low-minded kings. Okay, time out. As I put on my coat, because we want to make sure there's plenty of air in here.
Not plenty of air, plenty of fresh air. The amount of air will stay the same.
Thank you for that. I'll remember that.
There's an editorial note.
Okay. There we go. Ah, that's better. Okay. Text 5. It was in your dynasty, the Vamana speaking to Bali, that Hiraṇyakaśipu was born. Thank you. Hold on. Wait a minute. Now do it. Okay. Yeah. Just one? I saw 3 or 4 back there.
You stole the third one.
Okay. Now I can look forward to Subhadra's wards getting these. So begin again. Vamana says to Bali, it was in your dynasty that Hiraṇyakaśipu was born. Carrying only his own club, he wandered the globe alone, without assistance, to conquer all directions, and no hero he met could rival him. When delivering the earth from the Yarbodhika sea, Lord Viṣṇu, in his incarnation as a boar, killed Hiraṇyaksha, who had appeared before him. The fight was severe, and the Lord killed Hiraṇyaksha with great difficulty. Later, as the Lord thought about the uncommon prowess of Hiraṇyaksha, he felt himself victorious indeed. When Hiraṇyakaśipu heard the news of his brothers being killed, with great anger he went to the residence of Viṣṇu, the killer of his brother, wanting to kill Lord Viṣṇu. Seeing Hiraṇyakaśipu coming forward bearing a trident in his hand like personified death, Lord Viṣṇu, the best of all mystics and the knower of the progress of time, thought as follows: "Wheresoever I go, Hiraṇyakaśipu will follow me, as death follows all living entities. Therefore it is better for me to enter the core of his heart, for then, because of his power to see only externally, he will not see me." Lord Vāmanadeva continued, "O king of the demons, after Lord Viṣṇu made this decision, he entered the body of his enemy Hiraṇyakaśipu, who was running after him with great force. In the subtle body inconceivable to Hiraṇyakaśipu, Lord Viṣṇu, who was in great anxiety, entered in Hiraṇyakashipu's nostril along with his breath." That seems puzzling until we read the purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is already in the core of everyone's heart. Ishwarak savabhutanam riddesher junatishtati, Bhagavad Gita 1861. Logically, therefore, it was not at all difficult for Lord Viṣṇu to enter Hiraṇyakashipu's body. Now, Prabhupada explains, the word vivigna cheta, very anxious, is significant. It is not that Lord Viṣṇu was afraid of Hiraṇyakashipu. Rather, because of compassion, Lord Viṣṇu was in anxiety about how to act for his welfare. Text 11. Upon seeing that the residence of Lord Viṣṇu was vacant, Hiraṇyakashipu began searching for Lord Viṣṇu everywhere. Angry at not seeing him, Hiraṇyakashipu screamed loudly and searched the entire universe, including the surface of the earth, the higher planetary systems, all directions, and all the caves and oceans. But Hiraṇyakashipu, the greatest hero, did not see Viṣṇu anywhere. 12. Unable to see him, Hiraṇyakashipu said,
I think you're supposed to read just till 10.
"Oh, 10.
That was the final one.
Oh,
Don't say 2 weeks ago.
I'm sorry. I thought 20. That's what I was on the
No, just 2 to 10.
2 to 10. All right. There it is. Okay. Let's see. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara. So, the one thing that sticks out here, I guess, that is most maybe on someone's minds here, that here we have Lord Viṣṇu, who was very concerned, he was in great anxiety to help Hiraṇyakashipu. Very anxiety about how to act for his welfare. But in the last canto, we read the battle, about the battle between Viṣṇu in the form of Nrsimhadev and Hiraṇyakashipu. And you got the sense there that he was just super furious with him, that he wasn't really worrying about his welfare. He played with him, toyed with him, and then ripped him apart. And he stayed angry for some time, as we know the pastime. So how do we reconcile these? I mean, it just seems like quite a contrast between the mood of Lord Viṣṇu here, who was in anxiety how to help him, and he entered his body, and so he couldn't find him like that. And of course, ultimately we know that any living entity killed by the Lord is benefited, right? If you get killed by Viṣṇu. So Hiraṇyakashipu is a special case. He didn't go back to Vaikuntha right away, but it was a good step toward his next, eventually returning as Jaya Vijay. So I think what this speaks to is the great variety of different moods in which Krishna acts as these different incarnations. I mean, what was the mood of Kurma? And he was just helping out, and helping out the churning. And I think right in the end of the 12th canto, it describes how Kurma was breathing out, and somehow the sound vibration was purifying. I forget, but he comes in there at the end. So these different incarnations, they manifest these different moods, obviously. So I mean, Sringadeva is such a different mood than Mohini Murti, you know. And it's always because you see that he, for a specific purpose and a specific environment. Mohini Murti, her purpose was to bewilder the demons so she could deliver the nectar to the demigods. And it worked perfectly, you know. She could have just grabbed it and give it to the demigods, but she had this, he had this idea of manifesting that unique form. So this is one of the wonderful things about Krishna, about his amazing ability to manifest in such a way just for how he's relating to his devotees or his non-devotees, whatever may be the case. And it manifests so wonderfully in his Vrindavan Leela. You know, the little baby pastimes, you know, he manifests this for his mother and all the elder gopis in the early years, you know. And then when he goes out with the boys, you know, they send, the demons come, and he's always they're aghast, you know. I'm thinking of Bakasura. Think of Bakasura, you know. That is, he allows himself to be swallowed up. Balaram was shocked. Everyone was what's going to happen now, you know. And then he gets spit out again, you know, and he breaks the beak. And he's always doing that. He's enlivening them, and he's showing his prowess, and oftentimes he's saving them from death. You know, whether it's a forest fire or a Gasura, Kaliya, they actually died there, you know. So Krishna's, and in the larger, you know, panoply of his different incarnations, he always appears in such a form, like as I mentioned, I forget if I mentioned it last class, but Hiraṇyakaśipu was mentioned here, and of course the boar incarnation came. Okay, Krishna comes as a boar, you know. But he came so he could dive into that bottom of that Garbhodak ocean and then root around, right, with the snout, and put that earth, you know, on his snout and carry it up, you know, while Hiraṇyakaśipu was insulting him. You know, it's quite a scene. So this is one of Krishna's wonderful qualities, is that he acts in such a way just to enhance the pleasure of his devotees, to protect his devotees, of course, and to benefit those who he fights against as well. You know, these demons that get killed, they're blessed by that. You know, no one dies, but they're blessed, they're purified. There's one verse, I forget the Sanskrit, but he's glorifying Rupa Goswami, he's glorifying Krishna, who enters into the body of Aghasura and purifies him, just as he enters in as the holy name into the bodies of the devotees and purifies them. He's entering in. The holy name is not different from Krishna. So for Aghasura, he actually entered in and purified him, and then, you know, he merged into the body of Krishna, got Sayuja Mukti anyway. So so it's nice to see that Krishna is always acting for the benefit of his devotees, and ultimately everyone is a devotee. And so if he can, you know, kill a demon or Putana was got special blessing. She wasn't get Sayuja Mukti. But because she suckled him, he remembered that. He took that. That was on the positive side, even though she wanted to kill him. And she got the position of a wet nurse. You know, he showed his assistant in the spiritual world. So this is it's such a contrast. You know, this mood, how he's praising Hiraṇyakaśipu, but you know, the Sringadeva, he wasn't praising at all. You know, he's just like this fury because of what Hiraṇyakaśipu had done to Prahlad. But still, even though he was disemboweled, he was blessed. So Krishna is all good. And in the modern age, Prabhupada makes the point that, in the Bhagavad Gita, which is spoken, of course, at the end of Dwapara Yuga, beginning of Kali, Krishna at the end, he gives that key verse, Sarva Dharma Pratyaja Mamekam Sharanam Vraja, but he demands you surrender. If you're not going to surrender, then you're not going to get the blessing. If you do, then you get free of all your sins, you'll come to me, you'll think of me like that. But Lord Chaitanya didn't even do that. He didn't demand anything, He just invited. Here, come on, join the kirtan. You want to, so. And no prerequisites. That's a very important point. What's that verse? Nam namakari bahudani sarva shaktis tatra pitani medak smadane nakala. And that basically means there's no restriction of time, but it also means time, place, circumstance, candidate, right? That's the idea. No hard and fast rules. So that's perfectly suited to this Kali age, because practically everyone is born a Shudra, right? Kalo Shudra Sambhava. It says everyone's born a Shudra. So if there's all of these restrictions like they have in other ages, then what's going to happen to us? We all be out of luck. But the representatives of the Lord Himself, in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, actually seeks out. He just didn't stay in the temple or whatever, but he saw this whole pilgrimage to South India, and this nice story. When you read the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's a whole description of his South Indian tour. And it describes how he would dance and chant, basically. Do kirtan on the road. People would join him and go. And those who joined him or even just heard him, they would become so purified. They would be attain prema bhakti by doing that. They would go back to their village or whatever it is, and people would come and they would become pure also if he's chanting and giving it. So it was almost like a positive epidemic. It was contagious, this love of Godhead that he was spreading. And that's how he spread. And then he spent so many years in Jagannath Puri. Was it 12 years, I think, straight? Just manifesting this highest level of Krishna Prema, Radha Bhava. And he had his associates there, Ramananda Roy, Swarup Damodar, and Raghunath Das Goswami was there, and they kept notes, and then from their witnesses and their notes, we learned about that final section, and that's invaluable for devotees who are trying to really follow the course of Gaudiya Vaishnavism and to advance to the highest levels of Ragatmika Bhakti, following the Raganugas. So it's all we've got a complete course, but it takes devotees of the like Srila Prabhupada, who would actually take all the risks and the surrender and the tolerance to bring that to the rest of the world besides India, besides Vrindavan. Even in India, so much westernization that's taken place. But that's what we're so fortunate, that Prabhupada and Bhaktisiddhanta, he had the vision that Bhaktivinoda Thakur had given him, of preaching as widely as possible in the English language, and he sent some devotees abroad. There was even a special book, right? Dr. Sanyal wrote, especially for that preaching in English. Life of Lord Chaitanya, mostly based on the CC and the Chaitanya Bhagavatam. So all of that effort was there, but Bhaktisiddhanta's representatives couldn't really do much, And so Prabhupada, he came in, and instead of trying, he tried. I mean, he would send these letters to big people to try to get support. When he was in India, he sent back. When he was in America, he sent back to India. He had all these ideas. He saw a building in Manhattan. When you read the Lilamrita, it's amazing. There was this building, and he saw, this would be a great temple. He wasn't thinking of building a temple. This is a temple. And he had one correspondent, I forget his name, who was that wealthy fellow who was favorable, who was promising, if I can just get the money out of India, get it, But it eventually came to nothing. That was a false lead that he got. There was Mr. Payne, who was just out to cheat the devotees, you know, and he saw a nice building, oh, we can get this building, no, you know. Prabhupada was able, I think, to get back almost all the money. So but the point is that he had a difficult time and various setbacks, but he didn't give up. You know, that wonderful scene, you know, described in the Lilamrita, where he's going to the office of the ship, you know, at the pier. He would come down to the same, you know, the Scindia Line's office in New York. But he would never book a return ticket. He had a free return ticket, you know. He would come, but he wouldn't book it. Come, but he wouldn't. So finally the man said, Swamiji, you come all the time, but you're never booking a return ticket, you know. So Prabhupada was maybe ensuring himself he could go back if it was another failure, but he wasn't ready to give up, and eventually Krishna blessed him, you know, and he became successful down Lower East Side. And that was the beginning. So we're enjoying the fruits of all that austerity, you know, what that was. And the writing of the books, I mean, just imagine, you know, how, you know, we plan our day, you know, we get to bed maybe 9 o'clock, get up at 3 o'clock, 6 hours, you know, and it's austere. But can you imagine, you know, getting to bed at 9 o'clock and getting up at 12 and writing for 3 hours, you know, dictating every day, you know. There was no question of stopping because he had, you know, so much Bhagavatam, there's no question he would stop. And he stopped the Bhagavatam, gave us the Krishna book, and Nectar Devotion, you know, these treasures. So it's our duty to take advantage of all the gifts Srila Prabhupada gave. That's all he wants us to do. He wants us to take advantage of those gifts, become advanced. And as we read earlier, you know, I reread this purport, Kiba Vipra Kiba Nyata Shudra Kenino Ye Krishna Tattva Veta Se Guru Hoy. That there's different kinds of gurus. You read in the first chapter of the Adi Lila, you know, the instructing gurus. So we need to, you know, take on that role of being gurus, instructing gurus mostly, almost all, you know, for the innocent people. Those fortunate souls who show some interest, they may come to the class and, you know, occasionally, or come to Sunday feast, and try to give them as much of an instruction and as taste, so that they'll become intrigued and read the books and come back, begin chanting and become devotees. That's the whole idea. And that's our duty. That's our service to the Lord. That's a service to Srila Prabhupada, to our own spiritual masters. They're all spiritual masters because they've adopted that mood of working hard to fulfill Lord Chaitanya's mission of spreading Krishna consciousness everywhere. And as Krishna says, there's no devotee more dear to me than he who works to spread my mission. I mean, I'd be honest with you, but you know, this, when I'm giving these classes now, the three nights a week, used to be 4. And one of the verses that inspired me to start doing that was in the 18th chapter, where Krishna says, "One who teaches this science to the devotees is very dear to me." So, oh, well, okay, let me start and try to do that. Hare Krishna, welcome. We're having a class until about 8:30, 8:40, and then you're welcome to stay, you know, and get your darshan, chant, and breakfast. You're welcome. So that's that. You know, I mean, the other main motive was Prabhupada wanted these morning and evening classes, and in my you know, when I joined, that was a strict thing. Please take one of the seats. Is it okay? All right. And so, because I remember from Brooklyn, there was you know, we had a full temple, 60, 70 devotees, you know, and we had Harinam every day, you know, 3 hours. Most of us, and there was morning and evening class, no question about it. Everyone had to be there. Kirtan, Kiba Jayo Jaya Gora Chandra. This is you remember that song, Ramapati? Yeah. This is a meditation on Lord Chaitanya's getting worshipped, right? I think the Mahaprakash was the inspiration for it, where he actually revealed himself as God, and all the devotees were. So it's a very, very beautiful song. And then the kirtan, which has a different mood than the Mangalarti. You know, the lights are on, And everyone's had a full day of preaching and devotion, so it was very active. And then afterward, the class would be there. I think there was also part of it was given over to nectar devotion. You probably wanted to get that, maybe 10-minute reading. And then everyone would go downstairs doing prasadam hall and hot milk and hearing Krishna book. We had Prabhupada said, yes, if you read Krishna, hear Krishna every night, maybe you'll dream of Krishna, like that. So that was a hard and fast rule. Now it's true that when I went to LA, the evening class became less emphasized because you had the big all the book distribution going on, and those devotees would come back a little later, not in time for class. So the momentum was lost a little bit. But I know Prabhupada wanted it, and especially now we have the cameras and the YouTube, so there's an audience. I don't have like 1 million followers like some of these preachers in India. They get on here. Amazing. I mean, I think Kesava Maharaj definitely has a large following. But it's what Prabhupada wanted. He wanted this knowledge and his books spread as wide as possible to give people a chance to in the darkness of this modern age. And when my God, as you think, I mean, what's going on these days with the climate change, it's changing, not for the better, right? And that threat, and now nuclear war is also being talked about. It's just, so the urgency is there to try to get as many people chanting and reading and, at least beginning the path as much as possible. It's always been urgent, and it's as urgent as it ever was. So these books just provide such a wonderful feast, really, for those who are interested and curious and have a taste for the Bhagavat philosophy and the pastimes of the Lord. He's appearing here one after another. And we have that song by Jayadev Goswami, which we sing Tabakata Kamala Vare, but there's all the avatars, the Leela avatars are mentioned there, beautiful verses, So it's what I'm just getting at is that how we should take advantage of it. We should read, share these with each other. In my day, we had index cards with the verses we would copy on, because the ones that Prabhupada emphasized all the time, And that's a nice way of really, entering in, to the Sanskrit of the philosophy. It's easier to understand, and it's what Prabhupada did. And so, following in his footsteps, to support your statements by quoting the Bhagavad Gita, just like here, he's already in the core of the heart. Prabhupada quoted this verse all the time: "Isharak savabhutana bideshevdana tishtati, brahmayan savabhutana yantrarudani maya." So we're all mounted on a machine made of the material energy. The yantra, which is his body. But Krishna is also there in the heart, and he's the supreme Ishvara. And he says, of course, in chapter 15, Sarvasya chahamriti sannivishto mattaks matiya jnanam apohanangcha. Just like we read how he entered into the body of Hiraṇyakaśipu, or he's already there. So each of us is not alone. We're all, compacted in there with the super soul and us. And the super soul is explained in the Madhya Lila that he's trying to give us good instruction, but when we're in Maya, we don't hear it. We may hear a little bit in the term of conscience, the conscience that you have. But Krishna is trying to direct us. So he comes outside as the Acharya and the Shastra because we can hear, so give us that instruction. And so we're on this machine, but the machine is a body, and eventually it dies, and we go through that whole experience, and then rebirth. And Prabhupada, he would say, nowadays you may come into a womb, but you'll be aborted, and so there's all kinds of impetuses for getting on the path and moving along on the path. And a lot of the original impetus is that, hey, the real problem you have is not that you need to pay your rent and do all these different. Real problem is death. birth, old age, disease, birth and death, this cycle that we've been in for so many years and long. So that's the one that Krishna consciousness can solve, and in the process all your other problems are solved, you see. So that's a strong impetus for people to learn more and begin chanting. But when you begin chanting and you begin doing, there's this whole other impetus, which is the pleasure of serving Krishna, of being Krishna conscious, of glorifying the Lord, of hearing about Him. And this is what Prabhupada has given us abundance in this Chaitanya Charitamrita, the higher levels, where just the writings of the Goswamis, so exquisite in the Sanskrit and the expression. And so it's not only spiritually attractive and all attractive, but even materially it's so wonderful. I'll give you some examples. Like this from the Stavamala, describing Krishna's baby Leela. Kaila bihita yamalajana banjana sulilita chatatana kilajana ranjana lochana natana jitnchala kanjana mampati pali kali ganjana. That's a wonderful meditation. So Kaili, you perform the pastime vihita yamalajana banjana, of breaking the two Yamalarjuna trees. So, if you know Krishna's Leela, that can bring to mind so many things, images, and what led up to that, the pastime of course, Nalakuva and Manigriva and that whole thing, which he sang during Damodarastaka. So, Sulalita Charita, his extremely charming little baby pastime, Sulalita Charita Nikila Janaranjana, delighted all the residents of Vrindavan, you see. And when you say that, you're familiar with Krishna, but you can remember him crawling here and there, and playing and bringing things to his parents, and being mischievous, stealing the butter. All of that is a charming Leela. Lochana Nartana Jita Chala Kanjana. His eyes are very restless, moving here and there, back like the Kanjana bird dancing. Jita Chala Kanjana. Mam Padipali Akali Ganjana. O chastiser of the Kali demon, please protect me from all directions. It's a prayer for Mam Padipali Akali. So that's just one drop. That's just one beautiful verse. But you can see the artistry, the poetry, the sound. This is Rupa Goswami. So we have an abundance of that. I remember when I was working on the Chaitanya Charitamrita in the marathon in '75. So I won't go into how I got to work on it, but I didn't start, but I was able to work on the second month. It was 2 months. And I was given 4 chapters in the Antya Leela to edit. Can you imagine? Here I am, 2 years in the movement, I'm a young devotee, really haven't been. And now I'm working on these wonderful shlokas and pastime, Lord Chaitanya in Jagannath-pur, So there were so many verses that I memorized just out of attraction. I always had an attraction for that. I think a lot of it was the meter. It's almost a genetic thing. I've mentioned that my father was a drummer like that, So that's a big part of it, the chanda. And it just enthralled my mind. And it's such a wonderful way to remember and to share with devotees, And then I realized, but the Sanskrit is a kind of a barrier. So maybe I'll try to put some of them into poetry, English poetry, so people can understand. Hare Krishna, welcome. I got some nice garlands for you both. So that inspired my little effort at making some poetry. I remember I'm coming back from New York Rath Yatra on the plane. From there to, I think I went to LA and then came down here. And there was one poem that I had memorized in Sanskrit. It's called the first Kunja Biharashtaka. It has a wonderful meter to it. The same meter as chapter 35 of the 10th canto. I don't know if you get Vama Baha Kata Vama Kapolo Volgita Buladadapata Venam Komalanga Liberashita Margam Gopi Idiyati Yatta Mukunda. This is the gopis at home doing their chores and singing about Krishna and visualizing him in the forest doing all these things. So he's got his left shoulder on his left cheek playing the flute. Well, I'm a flute player. And if you read the Nectar of Devotion, you realize he has different sizes flutes. Some of them are pretty long. So if you have a long flute, you see, left shoulder, left cheek. So they're visualizing that. And then what's the result? Oh, the demigoddesses and the demigods flying in the sky in their airplanes, they're enthralled by that sound, and they go down and they hear, you know, what is that? What a wonderful sound. But immediately they're a little embarrassed because it's described that, you know, that the wife and the husband, you know, and the wife is getting attracted to Krishna, and she's a little embarrassed, you know. Okay. But then in Viṣṇu Chakravarti gives his commentary that the demigod is also getting attracted in that way, and he's really embarrassed because he's sitting next to his wife. Anyway, that's a little, but it goes on like that, you know, and then they were getting more excited, and instead of dot, it goes Anucharai Sumanavarnata Viya Adipurishi Hivachata Buddhi Vanacharokajita Teshitadanti Venanava Yatigasi Yadahi. This is quoted in the CC. So they're at home and they're visualizing what's going on. So his followers, Anucharai, all the boys who are with him, Samanavarnata Viya, they're also glorifying his pastimes as they're, you know, playing in the forest. Samanavarnata Viya Adi Purusha Iva Achalabhuti. It seems as if he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, surrounded by all his internal energies. They don't know he's God, but he's such a wonderful, you know, personality that he is. If Adi Purusha Iva Achalabhuti Vanacharokati Tateshu Tadante Venanavayati Gasi Yadahi. So as he goes through the forest and he plays his flute, then something happens. All the Vanalatastadava, all of the creepers growing there in the trees suddenly bloom with flowers and fruits. They're so ecstatic, and everything is fully conscious there. So they're hearing the flute, they're seeing Krishna, so they're very ecstatic. So the extra weight, you know, weighs down their branches and everything, and they're bowing down. You know, they're bowing down to Krishna as he's walking through the forest. And from the branches and the beehives are flowing the honey and all this stuff. So this is just a couple of verses. So back to our Kunja Bihashtika. So I'm in the Ratha Yatra and I'm in the plane. I said, well, I know this Ashtika. Maybe I can put it into poetry. You see. So I didn't have any paper. I had a pen I found. You know. So I was using the in-flight magazines, the napkins, you know, to write this thing. So. And I was able to put it into a rough format. I later revised it a little bit in the 5-hour flight, and the time went like that. Have you ever been so absorbed in Krishna consciousness so that where did they go? You know. So I said, wow, it's time to get off already. So I put it, you know. So here's some of the verses like I put in it. So the first verse like this. You can hear the meter. In the Nilamani Mandalavana, and it rhymes. Pullani Batsukusaman Chitakarna, Krishna Labada Kusora Sihari, Sundaro Jayati Kunja Bihari. Excuse me. His smooth complexion conquers sapphires, stunning to the eye. Kadamba blooms with fragrance full on each ear gently lie. His beauty's greatened by his chest where Gunja necklace stays. All glories to the Lord who in Vrindavan's forest plays. And it goes on. Chakora longing for the moon of Radha's radiant face. A thief purloining patience from the coward's wives apace. The word purloin means to steal. I needed a 2-syllable thing for steal. A thief purloining patience from the coward's wives apace. Is expert rhythmic dancing, winning all the gopis' praise. All glories to the Lord who in Vrindavan's forest plays. Then there's a little thing about Govardhan. He says, when Indra's sacrifice he stopped, he stole the Deva's pride by playfully uplifting Giri Govardhan to hide his friends and cows beneath the hill for 7 nights and days. All glories to the Lord who in Vrindavan's forest plays. And then it's about the flute. Raga Mandala Vibhusha Vangshi. It says, heartwarming, warbling melodies adorn his flute, which sings of Cupid's fest to him unending happiness it brings. The parrot pair his loving pastimes never tire to praise. All glories to the Lord who in Vrindavan's forest plays. So anyway, I've got the poetry. If you want it, write to me at Dravida108. Dravida108 at Gmail. I'll send you a big PDF full of the poetry. I have by Prabhupada too. I bow to A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, whose mission is to teach the art of purely serving God. To Krishna, no one on this earth can be more dear than he, for at Sri Krishna's lotus feet he dwells eternally. Or basically, this Western land from voidism, impersonalist creeds, and other shams. So Prabhupada's pranam mantra in poetry. Anyway, so that's was my little offering. And the whole idea is that the more you can absorb yourself in hearing and chanting Krishna's glories, and doing so especially in earshot of other devotees, you know, or even non-devotees, the more you stay Krishna conscious and spread Krishna consciousness. And you know, the books and are, you know, Prabhupada's chanting, the records of his chanting, he dictated most of them, you know. But the Srimad Bhagavatam is the ultimate commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. We learned that. Vedanta is not an accident. That word Vedanta is in Prabhupada's name. It means that Bhakti is the ultimate knowledge, is the fruit of the ultimate fruit of knowledge. Okay? Not an impersonal merging or anything like that. So and Srimad Bhagavatam is the authorized, the ultimate commentary on the Vedanta Sutra by the same author. In other words, he knows what he wanted to write, so he wrote in the Vedanta Sutra, and he wrote the Bhagavatam under the instruction of Narada Muni. So we've been given that with wonderful commentary drawn from different acharyas. We should relish it, absorb ourselves in it, share our realizations with the other devotees, and try to sell the books as well. Okay, it takes us to 8:37, 38 now. Any comments, commentary, questions, objections? Locally or online? Anyone online? Vijay, you there?
Yes, I'm here. And I have a question.
Please, you're on.
Yes, thank you very much, Dravida Prabhu. You're most kind. Dandavat pranams. Prabhu, do you mind reading again from text 2? The translation, the sentence is sentence number 2.
Okay, the second sentence of the translation to text 2.
Yes.
All right, so the first sentence is a long sentence. Your statements are very true, that one?
Yes.
Your statements are very true. This is Vamana speaking to Bali. Your statements are very true, and they completely agree with religious etiquette.
Yes, thank you very much. You're most kind. That is the quote. So based on this quote, my question would be, what religious etiquette is this?
The religious etiquette of honoring Brahmins. You know, when Brahmins come in, you should offer them a nice seat and praise and gifts if you can, something to eat, and hear from them, especially. So that's what Bali did, you know, when Vamana walked into the sacrifice. And this was in the previous chapter, the end of the previous chapter. He glorified him and offered him whatever he wanted as charity, which is quite an offering, because Bali was controlling the whole universe at that time, you know. So he could have offered him a nice planet somewhere, you know. So anyway, Vamanadeva appreciated that. And you have to remember, this is all part of the plan to get Bali out from under the blessings of the Brahmins, especially Shukracharya, because he was empowered from that. And when he appeared before Aditi, he said, well, I can't do the usual thing of just, you know, helping the demigods conquer the demons, because the demons are powered now, and they're doing very nicely by, you know, following their lead Brahman, Shukracharya. So you have to have another way of doing it. So that's what he's doing here. Bali is praising him, and he's offering him charity, and Shukracharya will object. I think we read that yesterday. He objects because he knows that this may look like a little, you know, dwarf Brahman, not a Brahman dwarf. I mean, I won't go into that again, but a diminutive Brahman, But he's actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And if you offer him whatever you offer him, he's going to take everything you have. And what Shukracharya didn't say, but what Prabhupada explains, is in the commentary. And then what am I going to do? Who's going to support me? If he takes everything you have, you're paying me as a teacher. So it's self-interested. So anyway, Bali rejected Shukracharya. He said, "You're saying I shouldn't give him any charity, but you taught me that we should worship the Brahmins. We should give charity. That's why I'm worshiping you. So I'm rejecting you." And so therefore, they didn't have the Brahma Tejas from the Brahmin anymore. You see, and then Vamanadev expanded himself. He offered him three steps of land, and the whole principle is the Brahmin should be satisfied with very little, the minimum. And Bali said, "I can offer you planets. Why is it 3 steps of land? Your soul," Baba would say, "your soul is very small." You hear that on tape. What does that mean? Soul of the foot. Your foot, you only have the small foot because you're diminutive. What steps? 3 steps. That's nothing. Well, one has to be satisfied with it. So he tricked him. Bali said, because Shukra said, "You may have promised it, but you don't have to do that now." He's going back, but you notice how he preempted that. He said, "Then you're very, and you're showing your character." Bali is very pious Brahmin, Kshatriya, and who never go back on their promise. Once they promise. So anyway, Bali offered him 3, and then what happened? He expanded himself back into the universal form. With 1 step, he covered the whole world. And with the other step, he covered the whole universe. Poked his foot through the barrier between the causal ocean and the universe, and the causal water started coming through and washed his feet and became the Ganges. So Bali was tricked, but he didn't mind. So anyway, he covers the whole universe with 2. So where's he going to put his 3rd step? There's no place left. He just covered everything. So Bali said, "Put it on my head." And in this way, he exemplified Atma Nivedana, offering everything, not only all his property that he had, but his very self. So that's going to come in a few verses. So that was the plan, very clever plan. It's the smartest, the Lord in the form of Vamanadev. And so that's the story. That's what he means, that when he says that your statements are very true, they completely agree with religious etiquette, that's because he's so nicely honoring Vamanadev, even though he doesn't know or realize that he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He just sees him as a very beautiful Brahmin, soul-in Brahmin. He's a dwarf Brahmin, means diminutive Brahmin. I won't go into it and explain that. The other day I gave class why we don't want to call him a Brahmin dwarf. Just look up dwarf in the dictionary when you get home. You'll see why. Any other questions?
I'm sorry, just a follow-up question very quickly.
Okay.
So if a Brahmana is in my presence and I do not observe the required etiquette to please him, is it that it may happen that he will curse me?
Well, not if he's a Vaishnava Brahmin. I mean, there's Brahmins who, they're official Brahmins and they do all kinds of sacrifices for going to heaven, But a Vaishnava Brahmin is not going to curse you if you don't respect him. Vaishnava Brahmin is very humble, doesn't really consider that he should have respect. This is the Lord who's praising Bali for honoring him as a Brahmin, But the Brahmins are going to say, "Hey, how come you didn't honor me?" That's not a real Brahmin. So I wouldn't worry about that. We should honor other devotees who many of whom are Brahmins, and you can massage their feet, offer them something to eat, and ask what else you can do for them. And I think that a real Vaishnava Brahmin says, "Just chant Hare Krishna, and why don't you read to me the Srimad Bhagavatam?" That would be, the devotee will ask you that. So I wouldn't worry about that, Prabhu, so much.
Of course. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, if there's nothing else, we can adjourn. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much.